And the crickets and cicada both sing just for me, and the owls all bow with respect. When death goes a-prowling like a wolf through the forest and finds his way to the front steps, I will be knocking around in your attic.
It was the most traumatic thing that will probably ever happen to me. I don't turn the light on or anything, and in the shadow, with the chandelier shining, I can see Matthew, and I can also see someone else, and it's lifeless.
The Southwest cannibal killing is one of the most shocking crimes in UK's history, after a newly released prisoner was said to have eaten a woman's face. He then stabbed her to death with a screwdriver. Locals have nicknamed the man Hannibal Lecter. Hello, my name is Holly, and this is the Murder She Shed, the place we honor the dead right from my she shed. This is the place to hear a rarely told true crime case. Do subscribe, don't subscribe, I don't care. Either way, come back and visit me in my crime lair. The psychology behind an individual who becomes a cannibal is immense. Throughout history, human beings have dined on human flesh. Whether it was an attempt to gain the enemy's strength or as a means to terrify opponents, cannibalism goes way back. Some cannibals are lonely individuals. They feel that by killing and eating a victim, that ensures they will never be alone. For some, it is a thrill. Some individuals are labeled as psychotic. In our case today, Matthew Williams is a schizophrenic mixed with illegal drug use. When a person is schizophrenic and cannibalism is involved, it is a means of a self-defense reaction to a perceived threat. Basically, they feel like they should hurt the victim before the victim hurts them. Often it can involve hallucinations. And that's where our story begins today. That takes us to Argode, a village community and electoral ward in the Caerphilly County Borough in South Wales. Argode is located around 132 miles away from London. A crime that occurred in 2014 would come as a shock for this quiet community. In the center of the village sat the Cerys Arms Hotel, which was being used as a hostel for past offenders and the homeless in the community. 34-year-old Matthew Williams was a prolific drug user, which made his paranoid schizophrenia, diagnosed at 16, worse. Matthew was the oldest of 4 brothers, and his parents divorced when he was 10 years old. He had spent more time in prison than out since his teen years. His illegal drug use began when he was only 9. At 15, due to his behavior issues at school, he decided just to drop out of school. Matthew spent time in a young offenders institution, age 15, and was a nightmare when he returned to live with his mother. He would steal to get money for drugs, was frequently in trouble with police, and was eventually taken into foster care. In 1997, although he was admitted into a mental facility, his stay there only lasted around 2 hours because he broke their drug-free policy rule. In June 2004, he was detained under Section 2 of the Mental Health Act after presenting psychotic-like symptoms. Matthew's conversation appeared bizarre, talking about dead babies in his nose. He was discharged in July after 5 weeks at the mental health unit. From June 2011 to October 2014, he received care from a mental health services during his time in prison. Matthew was released from HM Park Prison in Bridgend on October 23, 2014, after serving a 27-month sentence for an assault on his former partner. He had been living at the Cerys Arms Hotel since then. He had been released without his daily medication that he had been given daily in prison to control his schizophrenia. He was not being monitored after his release. The prison said Matthew had refused all help offered to address his drug problem, and he was released without medication simply because the doctors decided his psychosis was down to drug use and not schizophrenia. His behavior in prison in the run-up to his release was described as pleasant, polite, and with a high level of functioning. His criminal record showed he had 78 previous convictions, including 39 for burglary, 14 for drug offenses, and 3 for attacking people. Matthew was taking every day after leaving prison, and also he was taking that caused a man to attack a homeless man and eat his face. I don't know if you remember that case, but he was taking the same thing as that man was. Matthew's dad wanted him to move to Newport near his home because he felt going back to the same area in which had caused trouble for Matthew in the past would only lead him back to prison. Matthew had learned to paint in prison and wanted to move near his dad in order to start his own business. But after his release, it had been arranged for him to stay at the Sir Howie Arms Hotel. Weeks before the attack, Matthew had been seeing things that were not there. He would hear voices, say food was trying to poison him, and he would hallucinate. He was also aggressive to people he thought were a threat to him. He even had sent letters threatening other prisoners while in prison that he was going to kill them. 22-year-old Cerys Yemm was a ditzy blonde that could always make her friends and her younger sister laugh. Cerys was a lovely, beautiful girl from a wonderful family. Cerys had been in a stormy on and off relationship for 3 years when she finally ended the relationship with Matthew Yemm before her 21st birthday. Her distraught ex made an attempt on his own life by setting fire to his flat. In January 2014, he was jailed for arson. Cerys was looking for a new relationship when she met Matthew Williams. Cerys worked in sales at Next. Next is a clothing store in the UK. Cerys, formerly a student between 2008 and April 2009, had been studying health and social care. Cerys had been enjoying a bonfire night party on November 6, 2014 with friends in a pub near her home in Blackwood before she returned to the Sir Howie Arms Hotel with Matthew. The pair met that night through mutual friends, and Matthew had offered to call a taxi for Cerys. After flirting back and forth for a couple of weeks, Cerys decided to go to the hotel where Matthew had been living after their date. Cerys and Matthew continued smoking and drinking some beers after arriving at the hotel. Matthew had been taking a cocktail of drugs. That whole night they had been out together. Mandy Miles was the owner of the hotel and did not allow the residents to have guests in where they actually slept. Guests were only allowed in the common areas. She also made the residents have a curfew of 11 p.m. Mandy said that Matthew had always been polite to her and she had never felt threatened. Mandy had no idea of Matthew's violent past or that she had housed any dangerous offenders in the past. She said she was happy to accept people who had previously been in prison to her hostel as long as they were not deemed dangerous. On November 5th, Mandy noticed that Matthew had come back past curfew, and her son told her that he thought Matthew had a guest in his room, which was a no-no. Right as she was heading to talk to Matthew about his guest, she heard a blood-curdling scream. Mandy and her son ran to Matthew's room, unlocked it with her key, and walked into a scene that would haunt her forever. After she entered, she saw Matthew hunched over Cerys, both of them covered with her blood, and he was growling like a mad dog. Matthew was stabbing Cerys violently with the screwdriver. Mandy's son told Matthew, "That's a girl there," to which Matthew gave the chilling response, "That's no girl." Mandy said Matthew had a red face with black eyes when she saw him, and she later compared his face to Darth Maul on Star Wars. Mandy said that there had been blood dripping from his lip, and he looked demonic. Mandy saw that Cerys had already passed away, so she locked Matthew in his room and ran downstairs to call 999. "There's a lad in the room," she told the 999 operator. "He's actually eating her. He's chewing on her face. He's shoving a screwdriver in her face. It's awful. His name is Matthew Williams, and he's in room 7. There was screaming and screaming. "Oh my God, it's awful. I went into the room and he's killed her. Oh my God, is this real? There's blood everywhere and it looks like a horror film. He was using the screwdriver and stabbing." About 14 minutes after the troubling 999 call, the first officer showed up around 1:40 a.m. and used a taser on Matthew after he failed to respond to the officer's request for him to move away from Carrie's body. The officer later said that he had never been so scared in his life because Matthew looked so vacant and possessed. He stated, "I have gone to some horrific things through my service, but this was the most horrendous thing I have ever seen. The next thing to happen is I tried to engage with him, but I looked at his face and he just looked possessed. It was totally vacant. It was an angry sort of look, but if you looked in his eyes, you could not see color. They were almost all black. If he got to his feet, I would not be alive today." In order to make him stop attacking Cerys, the officer tased him. The officer said when he tasered the killer, the first barb went into his gut area, while the second barb struck him between the eyes. After several officers came, they then decided to handcuff Matthew and put leg straps on him. He was just not responding. He was just snarling and growling, and he appeared to be chewing on something. While attempting to restrain him, he was tasered a third time. Shortly afterwards, Williams stopped breathing and died. His death was caused from a cardiac arrest caused by all the drugs in his system and being tased. The ME found at least 89 separate injuries to Cerys Yemm's body, including bite marks all over her body. The ME gave her cause of death as sharp force trauma to the head and neck. An eyeball had been ripped out during the cannibalistic attack. Some of the cuts on her face were caused by broken pieces of pottery and a screwdriver. Her ears had been mutilated. Despite the disturbing history of the Sir Howie Arms Hotel, it sold to a couple in 2022 for more than the asking price. It was changed to a 3-story home with 9 bedrooms. Do you think that if Matthew had gotten the mental help he needed, Cerys would have still been alive? Cerys' family described her as kind, caring, and as she could always see the best in people. Her family would like to see reform of monitoring systems and information sharing between agencies when offenders are released from prison. Too bad the family will never see justice. The whole case is just so sad. The mental help that Matthew Williams did not get could have been the difference between Cerys' life and death. All right, guys, that's it from the Murder She Shipped for today. Before I forget, my 2 rabbits I was going to get, I couldn't get them because of the tornado. The cage I built for them was ripped off the front porch of the she shed and deposited in my garden in the back of the she shed. Here comes Simon. It needs some repairs first before I can even get rabbits. Also, I'd like to have a home first. That would be nice too. So rabbits are on the hold for now. Sadly, makes me sad, but I had to cancel my order on the 2 rabbits. She said she definitely understood. And so I'm going to get some later from her whenever things get back to normal, whenever that may be. Anyway, Simo says bye. Dined on human flesh. Whether it was an attempt. Oh, goodness. Oh, here he comes. No, he's going to lay on the porch. No, he's coming back. Coming back for more. Let me get some done, and then we'll play. We play after Mama gets this done, all right? Go do your business somewhere. Hey, I have to do this. Guy. Gotta be nice for what changing your life. Got dog hair in my mouth now. What's new? Are you back? Go lay down. Go lay down, Bubba. Go lay down. Go lay down. Try this for how many times? 3rd, 4th? I don't know. And to control his schizophrenia. You do love your subscribers, don't you? You love all your subscribers. And they love you. They love you too. They say it. They say they love you in all the comments. Let me tell them something. I tell him all the time that you guys give him hugs and kisses. He knows y'all love him. And he's only worried about one thing right now. And one of my subscribers asked me if I would do this, so we're going to do it. I know. We're going to do it. Bye. Oh, God, there goes my computer. Bye. Love y'all. Have a blessed week. Bye.
I'll be sure to haunt your kitchen cabinets with a touch of that